Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of full council. Welcome also to those members of the press and public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind member and officer colleagues to turn mobiles and computers to silent and ensure that when using the microphones, the red light is on and then turned off when you're finished speaking. We now move on to item agenda 1. Apologies for absence. Can I ask member services to report any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies this afternoon received from Councillors Booth, Councillor Mrs Mayor and Councillor Harris. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 2, previous minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of July 2020. Oh. Sorry, Councillor French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed on the minutes that I'm not present, but if you read the minutes further down, I left the room for an item, so I was present.
Right, okay, we cover that. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, the minutes on the 17th of July are shown on pages 3 to 16 of the agenda pack. I would like to move approval of the minutes. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor. Can I take Councillor Patrick, please? Thank you. Were you seconding? Thank you. And subject to that amendment. Thank you. Do any members have any comments to make about the minutes? No, no hands been raised, therefore the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 3, civic engagements update. For information, you'll find at pages 17 and 18 of the agenda pack a list of the civic engagements the Vice Chairman and I have attended in the weeks preceding this full council. Agenda item 4, to receive any announcements from the Chairman of the Council and or the Head of Paid Service. Unfortunately, I must begin my announcements today with the sad news about the recent passing of former Councillor Paul Jolly on the 24th of September. Paul, or Pop as he was known, was an elected member of Fenland District Council between 1990 and 2004, and then again between 2011 and 2014. During his time with the council, Pop served on various committees to include community, housing and property, and policy and resources, as well as the Leisure Services Board. He was also the local member for Mainey, and his stated goal was always to get things done. He is remembered as someone who was always willing to help, who enjoyed supporting good causes, and who had a heart of gold. Please can I therefore ask that you all join me in standing for a minute's silence to commemorate Pop's life. For anyone who is unable to stand, please remain seated. Thank you. Discuss. Thank you. Can I also ask officers to convey Fenland District Council's deepest sympathies to Pop's family at this difficult time? On a lighter note, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who attended my civic reception, which took place on the 15th of September. It was a successful and enjoyable evening, and I'd also like to give my thanks to member services for their support in organising it. I shall be hosting a coffee morning in aid of East Anglian Air Ambulance here in the chamber from 10 AM on Thursday, the 12th of October. And the carol service will be taking place from 6 PM on the 8th of December 2023 at St Peter and St Paul's Parish Church in Wisbech. I'd like to welcome your attendance at these events and look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. Agenda item 5, declarations of interest. Agenda item 5 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you raise your hand? No hands are raised, thank you. Agenda item 6, to receive questions from and provide answers to councillors in relation to matters which, in the opinion of the chairman, accord with the provisions of Procedure Rules 8.4 and 8.6. There have been no written questions submitted in accordance with Rule 8.6, and as Councillor Booth has given his apologies for the meeting today, it has been confirmed that there will be no questions under Rule 8.4. Agenda item 7, to receive reports from and ask questions of Cabinet members with portfolio holder responsibilities in accordance with Procedure Rules 8.1 and 8.2, which can be found at pages 19 to 74 in your packs. Procedure Rules 8.2 permits questions to Cabinet members about any matter which falls within their portfolio responsibilities, and members are reminded that there is a total time allocation of 1 hour for this item. If anybody has any questions, can you please raise your hand? Sorry, Councillor Gacenta.
Thank you. That's the portfolio holder for leisure. Why it's taking so long for the steps in the Whittlesea swimming pool to be taken away and repaired. It's 4 weeks now that they've not been safe to use. I understand that a member of the public carried out temporary repairs, which I'm very concerned about. Steps are being used, but I'm told at the public's own risk. I have asked the portfolio and he has followed it up for me, but for the sake of these minutes, I'd like him to respond, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Gerstner. I can inform you that costs have been appropriately done by Freedom Leisure to get these repaired. Unfortunately, the original contractor was unable to do the repairs, so it is being looked into further to get these repaired. I haven't actually personally been there and looked at it, but I will go down there and have a look at what the repairs need to be done, whether I can find someone locally to do the repairs on their behalf. Yes, it is regrettable that these haven't been repaired within the time, and I will be speaking to Freedom about getting them done in a more appropriate time scale.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for portfolio holders? Thank you. Item 8 is a motion submitted by Councillor Dr. Haq Nawaz concerning the County Council and Combined Authority War on Motorists. This is a motion from Councillor Nawaz. Would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will be when summing up. Thank you.
Do I need to stand up or could I do it sitting down? Stand up? Okay, that's fine. Thank you, sir. Societies have evolved such that the car has become an integral part of our lives. We are also aware of its negative impacts on the environment and share the concerns as well as the noble objectives of achieving net zero carbon mode of transport. However, to do so too quickly, too drastically, too punitively, without having viable alternatives would be too disruptive and in some cases constitute an existentialist threat to the individual's well-being. Indeed, it is widely perceived as war on motorists. This motion reflects those deep concerns and has been formulated accordingly. It is the County Council and Combined Authority War on Motorists. Council notes the many policy initiatives proposed by and supported by Cambridgeshire County Council CCC and or the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority CPCA, which are deliberately designed to force people out of their cars. This council further notes that the rural nature of much of Fenland, together with wholly inadequate public transport alternatives, means that for many people in Fenland, their ability to use a car is essential in accessing work, health, leisure, education, shops, and other services. Support given at CCC and or CPCA to the following policy initiatives is therefore inimical to the economic and social well-being of residents in Fenland. 1. Road space reallocation. 2. Modal filters to reduce traffic volumes. 3. Road capacity reduction schemes. 4. 20-minute cities. 5. Physical and pricing interventions designed to create traffic disappearance. 6. Trip budgets for new residential developments as part of traffic demand management. 7. Fiscal measures such as road charging and congestion charging. The geography and economy of Fenland is such that our area depends more on private vehicle transport than many other areas, and is likely to do so for many years to come. Council therefore rejects all proposals to introduce any of the following in or near Fenland: road space reallocation, modal filters to reduce traffic volumes, road capacity reduction schemes, 20-minute cities, physical and pricing interventions designed to create traffic disappearance. Trip budgets for new residential developments as part of traffic demand management. Fiscal measures such as road charging and congestion charging. Council therefore requires its members, whom the council has appointed as our representatives on the CPCA board and its committees, and officers who interact with the CPCA and CCC to reflect the sentiment within this motion when interacting with CCC or when representing this council at meetings of the CPCA or its committees. And I propose that motion, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mrs. French. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now? Thank you. The item is open for discussion and members are reminded that they're each able to speak once. Would anybody like to open the debate? Councillor Gerstner and then Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Councillor Nobbs. I'm not familiar with trip budgets. Can you explain to me what trip budgets are in a bit more detail, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so the question will be answered in the summing up at the end. Councillor Tierney, please.
Thank you, Jim. I think sometimes a narrative takes hold of society, and that narrative carries with it some truth and some misconceptions and some lies. And this has happened many times through history, and I believe is part of what's happening now. And without wanting to get into a lot of debate or argument about what may or may not be true, I do think that sometimes these narratives carry with them some very bad ideas, very ill-considered ideas that will have consequences that we can't even begin to imagine. And I think that the net zero idea that carries with it a lot of this removal of cars from the road is very real. And it's easy for us just to focus on County Council, who are currently the organisation which seems to be pushing it the hardest, although not the only one. But it's not just County Council. This is a narrative, and our own government, the Conservative government, have been doing some of it. They've rolled back a little bit, but they've been doing some of it, and other councils are doing it. Now, County Council are our focus at the moment, and it is there what I think are very bad ideas, which are leading us down a dangerous path. And I'm proud that we've brought this motion. We're a small council. I don't fool myself in thinking that anything we decide here today is going to stop this narrative in its tracks. But if nobody speaks up and these ideas are allowed to just press on, then they don't stop until reality makes them stop. And by that point, they can have caused a lot of harm and a lot of expense and a lot of damage to people, to individuals, to families, to society. So I definitely do support this motion. I think that the crazy idea that we can somehow take all the cars off the road to try and change the weather, I think that's a terrible narrative, and I think one that we have to oppose, even though I do agree with some of the arguments behind some of the environmentalism involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I'm very happy to support the motion which has been proposed by Councillor Nawaz. And these issues are ones which I've had to deal with as this council's board member on the combined authority for 18 months now. And many of the phrases which have been used in Councillor Nawaz's motion have been lifted directly from the CPCA's own documentation. And these phrases don't necessarily mean very much until you dig down and work out what it is they're actually saying. They talk about fiscal measures frequently. And they use that phrase because they think people won't realize that means congestion charging or road charging or some other form of taxation. They use the astonishing phrase car disappearance. Now, this isn't part of the magic circle where they get a magician to come along and the cars disappear. This concept, and it is a concept which they're pushing forward, this concept is if we make life really difficult for the motorists by placing obstacles in their way, by making it more expensive, then they'll just do away with their cars. So in other words, what they're trying to do, and they're using things like the modal lanes, which we've just been talking about, and other things, they are trying to make car journeys as difficult as possible for people so that they will no longer travel by car. Now, what sort of mentality is behind trying to punish individuals who are merely trying to get to work, to get to the shops, to get their children to school? What sort of mentality is it which is behind that? Councillor Gerstner asked about trip budgets. Again, another phrase none of us will be really familiar with. And this idea is, again, it's down in writing from the combined authority, that for all local authorities with planning functions, such as ourselves, we would be meant on all new developments to say, oh, we've got to take into account the vehicle movements coming into and out of that new development, and we've got to treat that as a cost which must be met by one means or another. It's a penalty upon the car use for new developments. And in fact, the corollary to that which we've seen now at least a couple of times in Cambridge City, is proposals for areas to be built with no access to cars whatsoever to the residential areas. Now, to be quite honest, what's appropriate in Cambridge City may be appropriate to Cambridge City. I'm not going to criticise it, but what's appropriate to Cambridge City is not necessarily appropriate to Fenland and places like Fenland. And we all know that at this time, and I'll emphasise that at this time, the vast majority of people need a car in order to conduct their daily lives. Now, I've objected to that and very much spoken against all of these ideas at the CPCA. I'm pleased to say that we stopped their local transport and connectivity plan when it came up last month. I think we'll hear a little bit more about that from Councillor Christie a bit later. And I will continue to do so in accordance with what we have heard from Councillor Nawaz. But it is a challenge that we're all going to have to face. Now, my personal position is very different from maybe many in this room. I can see the time that there will no longer be a need for the private car. And that might be as early as the 2040s. But we've got to get through the 2020s and 2030s first. And the idea that we're being asked to cut off our nose to spite our face, we're being asked to make sacrifices which will massively damage the economy and the lives of people living in Finland is really unacceptable until and unless there is an appropriate alternative to the current situation. So I very much support the motion which has been put forward by Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Count.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I too will support this motion, which I thought was excellently articulated and worded and presented. Thank you very much for bringing that in front of this council. It really exposes the desire to increase congestion in order to somehow facilitate and improve public transport network. And that is, it's fundamental. There are ways and means that we are being told we will be stopped being able to use the private motor car, which will force us onto public transport. Now, as our leader said, that may well work in a congested area like Cambridge City. I'm not commenting on that. But to have this one-size-fits-all approach for areas like Fenland is purely inappropriate. I went to meetings with a developer where he was trying to bring forward an industrial estate, and by industrial, I'm talking about the kind of development where you get B&Q and McDonald's and Wicks and that sort of thing. And that is moving forward under the current policies that are going ahead. But the officers at the county council wrote him an email and said, on the next thing, we are bringing in this new model of trip budgets, etc. We will measure the capacity of the entrance road, and no matter what happens, we will not increase it. We will not allow you to put in a bigger roundabout. We will not allow you to put in something that increases traffic flow. We will decide how many vehicles that can take. And if your development exceeds that number, instead of paying for a new roundabout, you will pay for trip budgets to pay for things like buses. Now, as I say, that might work in some areas of the county, but for the person who wants to go into Wicks and B&Q and buy his lawnmower and his 8-foot plank and his 8x4 thing, it doesn't work there. It doesn't work with the things. It doesn't make sense. Well, I challenged this at the time through officers, and we have a motion coming forward at full council, county council, in order to try and deal with this and go back to the national policy planning framework and make sure all of the officers understand where and when they can apply that kind of a measure. But it's only one of the raft that Chris has been, Councillor Bowden, has been seeing at the CPCA as a policy-driven change. We want to get rid of cars. This is not about net zero. This is not about climate change. This is about the difference between aspiration and a levelling up agenda and taking everybody down to what the lowest common denominator, what the people who are struggling to get onto public transport want. We all want better transport, but this isn't the way to go about it. In terms of Fenland, what really gets to me at the moment is we are now paying £12 for an average Band B property to subsidise buses, and the vast majority of that money is going to the well-served areas of the south of the county. So we have areas that here have villages have no transport whatsoever, and yet people get better service down in the south. So I went to the CPCA through the chief executive, and I said, I want to know who gets what service and where. It took half a year to get response, and when we did get response, it was down to parish level. Parish level in the south of the county goes down to 114. So they measured every village over 104, every parish over 114, and told me what buses they got. In Fenland, because of our amalgamation of parishes, it went down to 780. So if you've got 3 or 4 villages making up a parish, they had their tick boxes. Yes, we can get you to school. Yes, we can get you to work or not, or you get no service at all, based on a completely different population size. And they based their thinking and their policy and their measures on that. That is incredibly unfair to the people of Fenland, and that is something we've been fighting against and we need to move against. The other thing I want to bring up is as I move forward, clean air zones. So another part of the country has progressed with the clean air zones, and we all know that is just another measure of getting the private motorists off the road. Because in Cambridge City, the reason they didn't go for a clean air zone was all the evidence said the impact of that in removing cars from the street, not the impact on cleaning the air. The impact on moving cars from the streets will be purely temporary because of the shift to electric vehicles, electric buses, etc. And in the future, as more people get onto electric vehicles, the particulate matter from the brakes from buses will outweigh the NO contribution from the vehicles and the cars. So it's going the wrong way. So it wasn't even a desire for a clean air zone to save lives. It was a desire to use that as a method to drive cars off the road. So I'm absolutely grateful this is in front of us, and I'm grateful if this progresses today, it gives Chris the 110% credibility that he's already built for himself in saying that this doesn't work for Fenland and it's got to stop. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Councillor. Sorry, Chris. Brain freeze.
I thought I disappeared there for a minute, Chairman. I'm not going to repeat what has already been said, because many of the comments that have been made today are one that I fully support, and I will be supporting this motion. But I would just like to say this, and that is that I do sit on the Transport Committee for the CPCA, and it is extremely frustrating because the makeup of that committee means that the few of us that are of a certain colour in the political world have no real say on what the outcome is. And that's something we have to live with. Hopefully that will change, but that's what we live with at the moment. And the point is this, that yes, they're trying to get rid of the car. That's pretty evident. We don't have an adequate public service throughout Fenland. They have not spoken. I know that Councillor Count just spoke about the parishes. Now they are going to have discussions with the parishes, but it's 2015 since the last time there was a proper consultation with the parishes on what transport needs they require. Now that doesn't mean to say when they do this consultation that every parish will get what they want, but it will give an idea to the combined authority and hopefully through to the CCC of what is possible and what is not possible. So it's very frustrating at the moment. Everything that's been said so far is absolutely correct, and I've great pleasure in supporting this motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. My apologies again, Councillor Seaton. Would anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor French, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Thank you, Councillor Meek. Yeah, I totally agree with, obviously, thank you, Hack, for bringing this forward. I totally support this motion. And I know that Steve at County Council works exceptionally hard, and Chris does it, and so does the leader, Councillor Bowden. I won't repeat anything they've said, but you may or may not know that there is a policy at Cambridge County Council that every new development, if they do not put a 20-mile limit in the roads, they will not adopt the roads. That's already started. It's happened in March. The top of Gall Road, which is Canning Kirks, they were forced to. And also, they were forced to pay for a 50-mile speed limit from Peasehill roundabout to Gall Road. Why they did that, I don't know, because they've just spent £2.6 million on the traffic lights. So just be careful on the 20's plenty. It's an absolute nonsense. They're bringing in, are trying to bring it in everywhere. We were asked at county, we didn't put in, I know some of the parishes did, and they've got some extra money for this. And Fenland didn't get one village picked out of the whole of the county. Again, I did write to Chief Exec a few months ago about potholes not being done. I asked him, do we have to go and fill them ourselves? We go and cut the hedges for them. You know, where does it stop? So I fully support this motion, but be careful on your 20's plenty, because 20's not plenty.
Thank you, councillor French. Councillor Dr. Nawaz, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. It is quite evident that the concerns expressed in this motion are shared quite widely. And may I also thank those who have supported this motion. And I would endorse what Councillor Bowden had to say, reference the CPCA board meeting, because I took it upon myself to attend that meeting. Having read the meeting papers, I felt concerned enough of the impact it will have on this rural, very geographically diverse and scattered communities, and not having anywhere near adequate public transport, that I attended it. The phrases and the language that was used in that meeting, how it was camouflaged, these harsh measures were camouflaged. I think Sir Humphrey Appleby from Yes Minister would have been very pleased. But, you know, Jim Hacker wouldn't have been fooled, as indeed Councillor Bolton was not fooled. So evidently, we all seem to be united in purpose. I'm thankful, and hopefully we can progress on this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? The motion is agreed. Moving on to agenda item number 9, a motion submitted by Councillor Tim Taylor concerning weeds. Item 9 is a motion on notice from Councillor Taylor, which appears at pages 77 and 78 of the agenda pack. Councillor Taylor, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will then be when summing up.
Thank you, Chair. Something that's become a major issue in the Fenland area this year is obviously the volume of weeds on the roadsides. County Council's complete and utter lack of non-spraying them off. A lot of the weeds are actually dangerous to various forms of livestock, including farmers' crops, which then need extra work to get the weed seed out before it can actually be taken into the human food chain. There's a lot of speech about certain types of chemicals being bad for the environment, dangerous to health, which has been proven to be not true. So, yes, I want to motion the fact that county really do need to start and get back on top of these weeds. Funnily enough, they've obviously got grasp of it somewhere along the lines, because we've all had a questionnaire come through this morning. Someone's picking fleas out of their ear already after the replies I put in, I'm sure. But it is a motion that is getting out of hand. They say it was to save money and to protect wildlife. No, you don't create a lot of wildlife on a huge amount of weeds. It needs managing and managing properly. So I do want to motion the fact that we need weed control. Certain types of weed, that are dangerous to animals, can be toxic to us if overhandled, can create the farmer an absolute fortune in obviously trying to deal with weed seeds in his own crops. There is an act called the Ragwort Act, which states that ragwort must not be allowed to grow within 50 metres of food producing land and any forms of equine paddocks. It is highly toxic to all types of ruminant, which is an animal that can eat grass, but it will create major liver damage quite quickly in horses. And as you know, Fenland's got a vast amount of horses in it. So yeah, it's a motion I want to put forwards. Let's get the weeds dealt with. If county have got an issue with not being able to work out what chemicals to use, contact me. We'll put them in touch with some of the best agronomists in the world. We have them deal with us weekly. I'm sure the agronomist will be quite happy to supply and provide the correct information of what is required, what and when. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Woolard. Thank you, councillor Woolard. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now? Thank you.
The motion proposed by councillor Taylor, which you've all got copies of in greater detail, is very comprehensively covers the issues that we face across the towns and villages throughout Fenland. This blatant shirking by Cambridgeshire County Council of their responsibilities for the maintenance of our highway verges, pathways, drainage, culverts, etc., is undermining the efforts of everyone in Fenland to enhance our community. With hundreds of thousands of pounds being spent on projects across Fenland, such as the new marketplace with development in March, are being spoiled when viewed through a haze of weeds from the roadway. The use of glyphosate, as has been briefly touched upon, is safe for both humans and animals and is approved for use in the UK and across the European Union. We have far too many instances of flooding in Fenland, and the clogging of drains and culverts with weeds will only see this get worse if their current policy continues. The citizens of Fenland are not happy, and this change of policy must be addressed, and I hope that all members present today will support this motion, which I'm happy to second. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The item is open for discussion. Members are reminded that they're able to speak once. Do I have anybody who'd like to start the debate? Councillor Patrick.
Yes, I fully support this motion. I've lived in Wisbech nearly all my life. I'm driving around and I'm seeing weeds standing like that. I look at a dual carriageway with all the weeds, and I look at the town in general. It's a disgrace. I somehow think this isn't just a policy about weeds, but a cost-cutting exercise, which is leaving our towns looking so dirty and horrible.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Carney.
I, probably like many of you in this room, have been approached by my constituents about the lack of weed control and the roadside drains that have quite a healthy little crop of weeds growing within them. And when I reported this to the county at the time, this was early August, the initial response I got was just around problem, which I think we'll all become quite familiar with. But the thing is, the constituent was worried because they'd sent the email to me after we'd had one of these short, sharp summer storms where it had a terrific amount of rainfall in a very short space of time, and they worried about flooding, and which I think is a perfectly reasonable, thing to bring up. And after the initial response, the round robin response I received from highways, I then went back to ask, well, if that person properly flooded as a result of the drains not being properly cleaned out, who's liable? Surprise, surprise, it went very quiet. There's no response until probably in more recent weeks, when I think we've had some sort of communication. Now, just to reiterate what councillors Taylor and Woolard have said about the use of glyphosate. Now, I know of glyphosate for family reasons and for many years, and it is known as being it's probably among the safest products there is out there for weed control. And it doesn't take a lot. In fact, I did a bit of research over the weekend, And it doesn't take a lot to actually look on the Health and Safety Executive website, and I quote, and under the question, has glyphosate been subject to regular regulation checks? Among the answer, this process has been applied to glyphosate, which has been approved as safe and efficacious for a number of years now. Moving further on, another question, what controls are in place on the use of glyphosate in parks and public places? And again, I paraphrase the answer, but it basically says the responsible use of pesticides, herbicides in amenity areas as part of an integrated programme control can help deliver substantial benefits for society. Management of conservation areas, invasive species, flood risks, okay, and safe public spaces, for example, by preventing weed growth on hard surfaces, creating trip hazards. Now, it's also mentioned about ragwort. Again, a very quick look on the internet will prove to you, will show to you that ragwort is covered by the Weeds Act 1959, which is a list of 5 listed as injurious weeds. And this was augmented, if you like, by the Ragwort Control Act of 2003. And basically underneath all that, the code of practice, if it's not followed, then this can be used as evidence and legal action against the landowner if that weed is not properly controlled. So I'd like to just add those points to sort of bolster the motion that's being put before us this afternoon. And so, yes, I'd be more than happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Carney. Councillor Laws, thank you. You may remain seated, Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to come at this from a couple of other angles, if I may. Completely agree with the previous speakers, but a lot of people in this room attended a meeting a couple of weeks ago when we had a heavy downpour of rain. I was receiving texts, very worrying texts and emails from my resident. Many may not be aware, but I'm chairman of a voluntary flood warden group, and we have 220 properties known to be flooding out, and we have over 1,000 at risk to be flooding. And 6 of those properties were very in danger of that happening. One of the main reasons we have deliberately, the county council at expense put in some years ago, off curbs. Now these are curbs that manage the water on the roads. They take water away far quicker. They were blocked through weeds. And one of the residents, literally, the water was 3 foot from entering her property, and 2 properties actually had water entry. So it's important that these weeds are controlled for our surface water flooding. And obviously, as we know, climate is changing and we have milder winters, and that encompasses obviously more rainfalls, which I've got charts for this year. March in particular was very, very heavy. Our water table was extremely high in Whittlesea. We had a couple of days of North Bank actually closing. So, you know, weeds, people will think, well, that doesn't matter. Yes, it does. We need to control them. Following that incident on that night, I phoned County Council, had a discussion, because it would appear that several of the drains were blocked. Now, I have found out that drains are only emptied. There is not a planned programme at work County Council have now. It's only as and when required, allegedly. This is what I was told. So if this is the case, I'd like to know where they're saving all this money by not having a programme of planned works, where that money is being directed to, because I don't see it actually having any impact on our potholes or highway repairs. That's one thing. The other thing is, I've had a lot of calls from residents regarding how unsightly their roads are. And they are going to take matters into their own hand and probably use toxic sprays. Now, this to me, we're losing control, or county council is, of the weeds, because if they are going to use toxic sprays, and we've got dog walkers actually using those pavements, using those verges, then we could see things spiralling out of control. And lastly, I don't know if anyone has looked at Brighton and Hove. They actually stopped spraying weeds, and they now have weeds that are higher than children of school age, 10 and 11-year-olds. Now, that's the area I come from in West Sussex, and I'm here to tell you it is absolutely appalling. And Brighton is well known for tourists. What are you welcoming the tourists to? And Fenland will be no different to that if we allow this to continue. The other point about having overgrown verges with weeds is people now, including school children, will walk onto the highway. Now that's an accident waiting to happen, to avoid wet weeds or anything the height of them. So I totally support this, but I would like to know what County Council, and our County Councillors present, all the money they're saving at County Council, what are they doing with it? If they're saving it on weed sprays, labour to actually obviously control the weeds, and obviously drainage emptying, there's no planned programme of works as and when required. What are those people doing at County Council for our Fenland towns and parishes? Thank you, Chair. My rant is over.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Councillor Miss Scanlon, then Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chairman. I fully support this motion. It was me that mentioned to the councillors to prepare this ragwork. It is a legal responsibility for the authority to remove ragwork. It is a criminal offence not to. And I think they should be made very, very aware of this because of the detrimental effect it has on animals that graze on it. The other thing is, I also represent the IDB, and I know they are increasingly concerned about the amount of debris that is coming off these unkept sides on the roads into the drainage ditches. And it is going to come back and bite them in a big way. So you might get bigger bills for clearing out a slubbing, I think they call it, when they clear all the debris out, and they're actually carrying that out at the moment. So I do know there is concerns from the IDBs about the lack of clearing of the weeds from the side of the road, which, as quite mentioned, is a road hazard for cars coming out of junction. And there's a couple around where turves in that area where the weeds are higher than the driver's seat in the car and they can't see around them. So you're going to have accidents. But I fully support this because I think it needs to be brought to public attention about what they're not doing and should be doing in public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chairman. Interesting comments. I'll try and answer a couple of them if I can. So where's the money going? Well, in my view, the money is going towards the ideological favourite projects of County Council, which broadly is getting people off the roads, as we discussed earlier. The reason why this saved money is not being spent on highways is they don't want highways to get better. They want them to get worse, so you don't use them. Councillor Patrick was right, I think, when he said that there's a money-saving element to it. I think that the county councillors in charge fall broadly into two categories. One lot are absolutely ideological. The only thing that's on their mind is saving the world from global warming. And the other half of them are focused on saving as much money as they can from the things they don't like to spend on the things they do like, which, you know, if you want congestion zones in Cambridge and the like, is a good thing. And if you think that's bad, it's a bad thing. So I think that the problem we've got is that these individuals in charge are absolutely ideologically obsessed with pushing the projects that they want to see happen. And it doesn't matter. They don't care that it's illegal to not remove ragwork. What are they going to do? What are you going to defund the police? They do not care. They don't care how our towns look. As Councillor Warwick said to me earlier, having a town which is all overgrown with weeds makes people feel unsafe. It feels like the town is unkempt and unloved and uncared for. And people drive around and they say, what on earth has happened to this place that used to look so nice? Why has it been let to go to rack and ruin? And then they get told, well, it's to save the bees. Well, of course, that's nonsense. There are plenty of different compounds that you can use, which have all different levels of effect on wildlife, and you can get much safer ones if you're willing to do the research and spend the money. That's not what it's about. That's an excuse. What it's about is pursuing their ideological aims. They've been like that since they got in, and they'll be like that until they're booted out, and that's all there is to it. And if you don't want them to do it, you have to tell them. You have to say to them, this is not good enough. We're not going to have our towns look like this, all overgrown and rough and like somebody's forgotten about them, because that creates other situations. That creates a kind of knock-on effect where crime begins to rise because people think nobody cares and nobody's there. There is a consequence to these things, and you have to tell them or they'll never stop.
Thank you, councillor Tierney. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say, I'm disappointed at the need to bring a motion like this to council. County Council have only just recognised that when this policy change was introduced, they failed to consult with districts, parishes and towns. And it's only now that people are making their voices heard that they've put out a consultation, rather late in the day, I say. Last week, we had a police meet the public in Chatteris within Tesco car park. There was 2 police officers and 1 FDC officer. I went down when they were near the end of that session to find out what sort of things people were bringing to them, people of Chatteris. And yes, we had the usual things, potholes, inconsiderate and illegal parking. But one of the major things was the state of pathways and the gullies, to the extent that one person complained to the FDC officer about flooding, which was either caused by or exacerbated by the gullies being blocked. Surely we are not that hard up as a county that they can't afford to take a pride in our towns and villages. What I would say to every member here is there is a petition going forward put by Councillor Marks here to County Council. At the moment, I looked earlier on, there's 1,763 signatures on that. I would ask every one of you to go back to your residents and implore them to go on and sign this petition, because I'm sure there is lots more people who aren't aware of this petition out there that if they knew about it would sign up. So yes, I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Count and then Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to start off with a timeline and extra information that I can try and bring to this. The Highways and Transport Committee at the County Council were told about a pilot project in Cambridge City that was to try and remove weeds in a different way that could potentially lead to savings. Then in February, what we got was the budget in front of us, basically a few lines saying we're going to save £150,000 by stopping the use of glyphosates. There's a pilot in Cambridge City which will lead to savings. As part of that, we will spend an extra £40,000 engaging with parishes, not consulting, but engaging, i.e. telling parishes and towns that we will at some point in time stop using that. And it's very specific. It said we will have to do that engagement in the first quarter of the year, because before the growing season, so to speak. And that was all came to a head. The new policy came in April 23, 6 months ago. 6 months ago, and look at our towns now, look at our villages now. Can you imagine what it will be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? It would be unbelievable, wouldn't it? I mean, I just can't see a future for a first world country that allows its streets and its roads and its highways and its pavements to get into that sort of rack and ruin. But there we were, April, they brought it in and they forgot, as has been rightfully said by Councillor Hay, they forgot to engage with anybody except, of course, Cambridge City, who had advance notice because they run the pilot. Well, Cambridge City pilot, there was no more news on that. So I had to chase it. It never went back to Highways and Transport Committee, never came to us. So I said, what was the result of that and what was the trials? And I got a very bland answer, but knowing me, I went on and on until I got the full answer. So various different methods were trialed to see how they got rid of weeds. And now they are removing large weeds by hand. Of course, after that, they aren't bushy or whatever, they'll use glyphosate. So there we are, the trials, Cambridge City Council are using glyphosate. I got another email that talked about the invasive weeds, the ragworts, the Japanese knotweed, etc. Well, that's a bit specialist, but the other ones then, from Cambridgeshire County Council. And they're doing their first spray in the near future because that's the time period for them. So I said, what are you going to spray them with? And the answer was glyphosate. So I asked the officer concerned, I said, and I've got it all in an email, I said, can you confirm that it is safe to use glyphosate with the proper equipment, proper dosage? And he says, yes, of course it is, with our proper training, of course it is. So there we have quite a difficult thing, but from April until now, what happened was a swell of ground opinion went in and the complaints started going in, and they started going in regularly, not just from Finland where we're all blue and it doesn't really matter because you don't care about the environment, but they started coming in from the south of the county, from Cambridgeshire, from everywhere, even from the chair of the highways, his own parish. And all of a sudden the pennies started dropping, despite being warned about this. So he said, we think with any new policy, there may be some fine tuning to be done. I agree, that's fair enough comment. But unfortunately for him, that didn't stop the complaints. So the complaints kept coming in from every north, east, south and west. So the director issued a letter. He issued a letter, he sent it out far and wide, and he said, yes, new policy, we've got to look at new policies. And hidden down below was part of the new budget setting cycle, which starts in November, well, it's going on now, but it doesn't come into force until February and then April of next year. So nothing is going to be done, according to the director, about your weeds at the moment. Only next year when we'll think about it again. And you know what? The complaints kept coming in. They kept coming in. So now what we have is a questionnaire sent out this week to all councillors. Coincidentally, I think that some people are aware that there is a motion at full council, at county council going on about this. So it is a little bit too little too late, and we do want action now. I've given evidence of an active travel route in March that is on a blind corner. It's for cyclists and pedestrians only, and it's about the width of from Alex's to about there. And the path on that blind corner is now restricted to about that wide for the children to get to and from school in two directions. And they come around the blind corner, and the only way they're going to get past that is risk hitting somebody. So they have to go onto the main road instead for safety. So I brought that up as an example, and they're going to look into that. I am disappointed, and I totally agree about the comment about money. This was done for savings. We told them in February, we said, you will not make any savings. Look at our roads and pavements now. Look at the maintenance that will be required one day to put them right. The few savings they made will pale into insignificance compared to the repair works, let alone the damage done by the flooding that will be caused. It's an absolutely diabolical policy that wasn't thought through. It was done through political ideology and no other reason. I'm going to thank Councillor Patrick today personally. This is not a political motion, and you recognise that. And thank you for that, because this isn't about politics. And I'm going to be parochial now. This is about what we care about. My hometown of March, and I represent a county, a large area, but my hometown of March secured over £12 million to change the town centre. Now, not everybody agrees with that change. I know that. And I know that a lot of people blame me if they don't like it, and nobody thanks me if they do. But nobody I've met ever likes the weeds that we're seeing now, and it will be destroyed if this doesn't stop. So on behalf of the people of March, I thank the motion coming forward. I thank Charlie Marks for the petition that he's put forward. Please do get everybody to sign this. It has my 110% backing, and I really hope that we can get them to change their mind, because this isn't working. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marks, we'll make you the last speaker on this debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep it brief. Regarding last 2 Wednesdays ago, I had a phone call at 9:30 at night from a local saying, Charlie, can you come out please? This is the 4th time I'm flooded. I got there and found a gully absolutely blocked up with weeds. We removed the weeds, and I looked at his wife. This is the 4th time they have been flooded in 3 years. And the human cost of that far outweighs killing some weeds and cleaning the gullies. We need to get these gullies cleaned out. The on cost also, as has already been mentioned, we've had a lot of slurry work done, which is a cheaper way of repairing the pavements around Maining. The problem is now the weeds are growing out in the middle of them. So come the winter, all that's going to happen, the frost's going to get underneath, lift that, and then they'll become a trip hazard. How much more do we just keep missing out on? Surely CCC need to now get this resolved once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, folks. I just want to clarify a couple of bits, because there is quite a bit of confusion around this glyphosate rulings. Unfortunately, there's an old saying in farming, and that's 1 year's weed, 7 years hoeing. So that's not, if that hasn't been touched now for a year, you've got a good 3 or 4 years to get rid of what we've already got. Glyphosate, yeah, originally it was manufactured as a wormer for cattle. It's not until the final inspector went round to inspect and sign the license, he noticed that wherever this glyphosate had been administered to the cattle, all the ground was dead. Monsanto then realised they could make more money off Roundup as a wormer, as a weed killer than what they did a wormer. So yes, completely safe right back to day dot. Yes, there's a lot of work to do. I will motion it, I'll post it, I will kick wherever it needs to go. But there is some weeds that glyphosate won't kill. Brambles being an instance. If there's a lot of brambles on areas, glyphosate is not the chemical for that. That needs to be a different one. Which is why, Chair, I said that if county need any advice, come and see me, because there is so many different chemicals for different weeds now. But I will motion this, I say, and I will push all the way. It's happy to see everybody behind it. Let's get it sorted out once and for all. But glyphosate as a money-saving exercise, and I've not got a calculator in front and I don't work in litres, but there's 5 mil of glyphosate to 100 litres of water. Now, I can't work that out because my spray is 3,500 gallons, so I'm just backwards and forwards for the volumes. But a glyphosate at £92 per litre for concentrate, that gives us something around 36, 37 acres to spray per sprayer full. If you're spraying a pathway this size, you're going to do most of much on 1 tankful on 1 litre of neat chemical. Pennies. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. That's very enlightening. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Motion is agreed. Item 10 is a motion submitted by Councillor Christie concerning the local transport and connectivity plan. Councillor Christie, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will be when summing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Council notes that at its board meeting on the 20th of September, the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority rejected the proposed local transport connectivity plan put before it for consideration. Despite much of the proposed LTCP containing very valuable proposals, Council believes that the rejection was appropriate by the CPCA board because of 2 fundamental flaws. Firstly, a lack of financing for the plan, and secondly, a one-size-fits-all contained within the LTCP strategic document. The proposed LTCP stated that much of the funding to effect the plan would come from the Greater Cambridge Partnerships Making Connections project, effectively from their proposed Cambridge congestion charge. It appears that the congestion charge is now effectively dead in the water, leaving the proposed LTCP effectively wholly unfinanced. As a positive way forwards, Council believes that the good elements contained within the rejected LTCP can be retained if a revised version of the LTCP were to be produced with the following fundamental changes to the strategic document. Firstly, recognising that the LTCP is now wholly unfunded, prioritising the measures within the LTCP so that as any funding becomes available, the functional and geographic order in which the LTCP will be implemented will be clearly designated in advance. And secondly, in any such prioritisation, specific account should be taken of the opposition in some specific districts to implementing, in short and medium term, 20-minute cities, road space reallocation, modal filters to reduce traffic volumes, physical and pricing interventions to create traffic disappearance, and fiscal measures such as road charging and congestion charging. Council asked the combined authority mayor to show some flexibility on this issue so that all of the constituent members of the combined authority can support a revised LTCP and work together in effecting its provisions. Council agrees that this resolution should be sent to all board members of the combined authority and requires FDC members whom the council has appointed as our representatives on the CPCA board and its committees and officers who interact with the CPCA and CCC as Highways Authority to reflect the sentiment within this motion when interacting with CCC or when representing this council at meetings of the CPCA or its committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Christie. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Davis. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now? At the end? Thank you. The item is open for discussion and members are reminded that they are each able to speak once. Would anybody like to start the debate? Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you. So I was quite interested to read Mayor Dr. Nick's letter to the leader of Peterborough City Council. Now, I know it's been fun for certain people to make fun of him, but in my opinion, that man is a hero because he is the only person that's been physically able to block the LTCP. I know obviously our leader and the leader of East Cambs have also obviously been against it, but they sadly, are outnumbered on the board. And so the only person that can currently stop it is the leader of Peterborough. And the reason I think it's so important is because it is such a poor document. Now, in that letter, he says that people have misunderstood it and people should read it. Now, you struggle to read it because if you go on their website, there's a website called Your LTCP, doesn't work. There's another link to the LTCP document, doesn't work. I tried again about 10 minutes ago, still doesn't work. So I don't know how the public are supposed to read that and make their own mind up. I think what worries me the most about it is they say that it's going to bring loads of buses to the area. I personally don't believe that. We've all heard these empty promises before, but my biggest worry about it is how they seem to hate cars so much and will do things that are damaging. So one of the proposals in there is to put a bus lane on the Elm Hall roundabout in Wisbech, a bus lane. So for the one bus an hour that goes down there, it's going to get a nice fast bus lane, and that already massively congested road will be limited to one lane of traffic. How on earth can we support that? How on earth? I know, obviously not all of you, we're not all from Wisbech, I understand that. And there are obviously similar terrible proposals in your towns. And obviously I can't speak for those because I don't know them as well as you all do, but hopefully you can all see that that is an absolutely ludicrous proposal. And it's proposals like that we have to fight, because otherwise it's going to be a disaster. If this is brought in, it's going to lead to more and more congestion in our towns. And I think, like the speakers have said, and I won't go on again, I think that's what they want.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Anybody else like to speak on this debate? Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you. During my short period as district councillor, I've had the opportunity to attend some meetings in Huntingdon as well as in Peterborough. It is quite evident that what is going on are doctrinaire politics rather than pragmatic policies to address the real needs of the real people, particularly in places away from Cambridge City. If you go to Cambridge Station, for example, you would see a queue of buses waiting for passengers, not a queue of passengers waiting for buses. If you come to Whittlesea, you will see people waiting there half an hour, 40 minutes, and after 7 o'clock, probably until the following morning. And this is particularly difficult for those with children who go to school. The timetable is utterly inappropriate. The trains are, well, you're lucky if you see one that actually stops in Whittlesea. You see plenty that go through Whittlesea. And I think what is needed is a comprehensive plan that takes care of the needs of all of the residents of Cambridgeshire, not one particular point within Cambridgeshire, which sustains the ruling group of a collection of politicians who are more keen to look after their political constituency rather than the real concerns and issues of the residents. I would therefore vigorously support this motion, sir, and endorse everything that has been said from my own experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else like to speak? Councillor Count?
Yes, I haven't intended to say much on this because a large amount of this is replicated in a different way to what we was talking about earlier, and so I'd run out of area if I was speaking about that. Well, one thing I do want to bring to the table that is slightly different is the kind of where do we go now scenario. What we have is we have the Great Cambridge Partnership that has failed to deliver their vision for the future. They called it Making Connections. It was how do we get the cars off the road to pay for everything else. That was supposed to deliver £80 million a year. All right, £80 million a year they were hoping to get out of that. They would fund everything, and all singing, all dancing strategy for Cambridge City and South Cambridge to about 90%, and then some outlying areas. That failed, that's all finished now, okay? The mayor wants to bring forward his local transport plan that relies on road charging, all the money from the congestion charge, if he's allowed to get his mucky little paws on it, to deliver some of his aims, and that's failed now. So where do we go now? Well, the one thing that they can't do at the moment, they say, is, you know, we can't do anything now because we haven't got any funding. So the first response we got from the Labour leader of the Labour appointed representative on the GCP, Elisa Machini, is we'll have to revisit other areas, such as bringing in payment for parking. So if you go to work, you've got to pay to park there, either charge business or that. So the very first knee-jerk reaction is how to raise taxes. Now, when the Conservatives, and it's a little while ago, when the Conservatives were in charge for those few years that, you know, led up to this change at all the different levels, the first thing we did was we secured the city deal, which became the GCP, and they got £30 million a year from the government to deliver transport solutions, primarily transport solutions. The reason being that the amount of tax that this area pays into the government and doesn't get anything back for. We got 30 million a year, sorry, 20 million a year, going up to which is now 40 million a year. We then went on to create the combined authority to get 30 million a year to deliver these transport solutions. We now have two bodies getting 70 million pounds a year, and the only ideas are, how do we get more money out of the local residents to pay for something? Well, why don't they use some of that 17 million pounds a year to make a difference instead of just pursuing this? So one of the differences they could make, the GCP had 50 million pounds sat in their back pocket to start putting forward improved bus services ahead of the congestion charge. And yet, despite the congestion charge failing, nobody is mentioning that. Nobody is saying, actually, there's 50 million pounds who's going to spend on the buses before the congestion charge. Everybody's talking about from pounds out, how can we increase, how can we find some more money? And it's so disappointing. And that's why we have to keep holding these things up to the light of day. We have to go in there and fight it. We have to have these letters, these representations go in saying, yes, we need a local transport plan, but it actually has to be based on some sound finance, some sound reasonable things, and actually project what you're going to do with the money, something we can all unite together on, us, East Cambridgeshire, Huntingdonshire, South Cambridgeshire, Cambridge City, if it's fair and equal. But what we aren't getting is something that's fair and equal. It's what suits Cambridge City because of their unique problems and doesn't suit the rest of us. So I thank you for bringing this forward, and I will happily endorse it.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Davis, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
With your indulgence, Chair, may I remain seated as I have?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I endorse everything that everybody else has said, and there's not really much left to say, except that the whole of the transport policy seems to be in complete disarray. And that was evident when we had the renewal of contracts for all the bus routes. And I mean, we had bus routes, one particular bus route in Fenland that didn't know until the night before whether there was going to be a service the next day. So people didn't know whether they would be able to get to their jobs or get their children to school or whatever they had to do. It's come out recently that there grants have been given to at least 4 of the bus routes that have just been approved. And we are talking in the tune of thousands of pounds so that they can trial on-demand services. The one route that they couldn't get right until the 11th of April would have been the ideal route for an on-demand service, but of course it happens to be in Fenland, so it wasn't selected. And I think it's just so apparent that there is a complete and utter disregard for Fenland as a whole in all the policies. It isn't just transport, it's everything. And it's time that we start, really shouting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Christie, would you like to sum up, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comments, everybody, on this motion here. Councillor Hoyt, good luck getting to the documents on there. If you do manage to get hold of the GCP document, I think nobody would be surprised to identify that on the map. I think it March, and that map shows as a satellite of Chatteris, and Wisbech doesn't exist in terms of the funding. Yes, yeah. And I think that the main thing about this is that this one size fits all. Again, as Councillor Davis says, there are many things that we can do within Fenland from a transport perspective, innovative ideas that we can use, and we just need the funding to be able to be prioritised to make that happen within Fenland. So that's why I implore people to support this motion. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Christie. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? The motion is agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 11, overview and scrutiny annual report, which can be found on pages 81 to 90 of your pack. I now call upon Councillor Davis as the new chairman of Overview and Scrutiny to present this report, and you may remain seated.
Thank you, Chair. It is a legal requirement for each local authority to set up a scrutiny process as a function of the council. Fenland District Council currently has a single overview and scrutiny committee, and the functions for which it is responsible are set out at Procedure Rule 5 of the Constitution. As a matter of good governance and in the delivery of my new role as chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I'm required to present the annual report for 2022-23, albeit that during that time, former Councillor Mason was fulfilling that role. I would therefore like to take this opportunity to thank all former and ongoing members of the panel for their time and contributions to the Works programme for the term of their appointments and for the purpose of this report during the last municipal year. Whilst I was not a member of the committee last year, I have had the benefit of being able to review its activities, and I'm pleased to be able to present this information to you. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee has an important role to play in overseeing the performance and delivery of services. This year, the committee has again had the benefit of receiving a variety of reports from internal and external colleagues across a broad range of service areas pertaining to the council's core priorities. A cross-party task and finish group was also established to review the current corporate performance indicators to ensure that they continue to add value and are both measurable and achievable in nature. The work of the group is due to conclude this year in line with the formation of next year's business plan. In the coming year, the committee will continue to receive regular performance updates to ensure that services perform well. The future work programme will be published with the agenda for each meeting and will focus on issues that are of paramount importance to local residents and businesses. I'm looking forward to undertaking my new role as chair, and I'm confident that the committee, now comprised of both new and ongoing members, can maintain the high standard expected of it in the performance of its function. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Scanlon. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate? The item is open for debate. Councillor Scanlon.
Thank you very much, Chairman. You will notice from the documents that I, in fact, was the Vice Chairman of the previous committee. And I wish to extend my thanks to all the officers and members that took the time to present themselves to the committee, and looking forward to reading the report next year, because I think Councillor Mason, who was the chairman, and I was the vice, we did a job that was needed, and I think going forward the current ONS committee are doing an excellent job, and I would support them all the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, would you like to sum up, please?
No, thank you, Councillor Scanlon, for your kind words. And yes, we're on a learning curve because there are a lot of new members on overview and scrutiny, but that's also a good thing because it brings different opinions and people wanting different information. So I'm sure moving forward, I hope that we can be of service. Thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation is at page 81 of the agenda pack and is for full council to acknowledge the broad scope of work undertaken by the overview and scrutiny panel during 2022-2023. Is that duly noted? Thank you. Agenda item 12, the Audit and Management Risk Committee Annual Report for 2022-2023, which can be found at pages 91 to 100 of your pack. I now call upon Councillor Miss French as Chairman of the Audit and Risk Management Committee to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. It is considered good practice for the Audit and Risk Management Committee to present Council with an annual report on the work carried out by the committee in the preceding year. This is an opportunity to consider if the committee has effectively fulfilled its role. Good corporate governance requires independent, effective assurance about the adequacy of financial and operational management and reporting. This assurance is best delivered by a committee that is independent from the executive and scrutiny functions. I would like to thank members of the committee for their participation and enthusiasm, and officers for their work in servicing the needs of the committee. The Audit and Risk Management Committee is tasked with two key functions: providing independent assurance of the adequacy of the risk management framework and the control environment, and independently scrutinising the authority's financial and non-financial performance and overseeing the financial reporting process. Accordingly, the activity of the committee outlined in the report shows that it approved the annual governance statement for 21-22, the internal audit outturn and internal audit manager's annual opinion for 21-22. Additionally, an external review of the internal audit effectiveness for 22-23 was received, and it was confirmed that the internal audit team generally conforms, is effective and follows professional quality standards. For information, generally conforms is the highest rating that can be given in any external review. The committee further conducted the review of the risk management strategy and received regular updates throughout the year on the corporate risk register. The committee monitored the progress of the internal audit activity throughout the year and received regular updates on the progress of the external audit. Due to external audit backlog issues, no statement of accounts or external auditor reports were received in 22-23. For information, the external auditors report and the statement of accounts for 21-22 were received and approved at last week's Audit and Risk Committee meeting. The committee also reviewed the Treasury Management State Strategy and received updates throughout the year on the Treasury activity. Training of the committee was also considered in the report, highlighting the importance of regular training of the committee members to keep knowledge and skills up to date and relevant in the changing environment of corporate governance. In addition to the report attached, the CIPFA checklist has been completed assessing the committee's compliance with a range of activities deemed essential for a committee of this nature. There is a high degree of compliance with only minor areas of partial compliance. There were no areas of non-compliance, demonstrating the committee's commitment to ensuring effective governance arrangements are in place. Further supporting the committee's commitment to ensuring effective governance arrangements, we have also considered the benefits of appointing an independent member to the Audit and Risk Management Committee, and a further discussion will take place on this later this year. Suffice to say that the Audit and Risk Management Committee play an important part in ensuring, on your behalf, that financial, audit and risk matters relating to the council affairs are dealt with effectively and properly. I ask that this report outline the committee's activities over the last year is approved by the council.
Thank you, Councillor French. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Laws. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate?
Thank you, Chair. Not at the moment. I'll reserve till last.
Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor Laws.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Miss French, would you like to sum up, please?
Nothing else to add, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, members. The recommendation is at page 91 of the report and is for full council to acknowledge the work of the Audit and Risk Management Committee and its compliance with CIPFA's annual checklist for 2022-2023. Is that duly noted? Thank you. Item 14, close of meeting and date for the next meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this afternoon's meeting. I'd like to thank you for your attendance, and may I remind you that the next ordinary meeting of full council will take place on Monday, the 11th of December 2023 at 4 p.m.